Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And I'm TK.
And that makes this X is for Podcast, your one and only comic book feedback twice a week. Well, once a week, two people plus a producer. Kevo, come in, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
I love that you said two people plus a producer because, as we all know, producers are not people.
I mean, that is what
It's true.
Yeah, not human.
So I am super excited, as always, to be working around the clock to bring you guys all the best there is in comic book news. One of the things that definitely caught my ear this week has been some of the conversation going on over at DC movie studios. And I am saying all of this, genuinely with a big bit of laughter in my throat. But I really want to clarify that the more that I don't know his name, Director Man, and Lady Gaga and the other Phoenix, the more they talk about how Joker 2 is not a musical, because it's not like a musical. They don't want you to think it's like one of those musicals that's a musical. It's not like that. No, this isn't like weird or like they all but say lame and gay. Instead of being a musical where people dance and sing and say their feelings through song, this isn't a musical. People dance and sing and say their feelings through song, but it's not like a musical like you're thinking, because it's not like that. It's cool.
Which is so weird. It feels a little bit like the production and PR team that said cast Lady Gaga because the poison of this film is that it seems like something that appeals only to incels. So if you cast the icon of the anti-incel, homosexual men, it'll do something. And then what's going to please that group even more when it's a really Gaga thing? So it's a musical. So like, okay, we're there. Like queer men everywhere. I'm in. I'm sold. And this is the funny. We've been talking about like, okay, are we seeing this film? Are we covering this film? Because, like, I think we want to because of her and, like, the idea of her as Harley Quinn. But then they really, as soon as they set that up, immediately they were like, well, it's not Harley Quinn, like, the fun one that Margot Robbie plays. It's, like, if you imagined the fun one, but then Joaquin Phoenix pissed all over your film and started method acting. It's like that level of unenjoyable. And then the other thing that we did, which was make it a musical. It's not actually a musical because we're not faggy like you guys. We're incels. Horrible setup. It's just because I actually think this is probably going to be pretty fun, but we're getting to the point where I'm like, am I maybe not doing this, either not covering it at all or not covering it with gusto, based entirely on the fact that it seems like you're really committed to this incel brand, to this, like, the tent is not large enough for all of you. Like, we would like you to see what's going on in the tent, but we would ask that you not come in. We don't have room for you under the tent.
Yeah, it's the same reason there isn't room in the Insane Clown Posse banner for both insane people and clowns. I just realized that your shirt is getting green screen.
Yeah, no, and I've left it on. So Kevo and I talked about it, and I was like, I just kind of love it. I'm just, if I get myself, look, now I'm just floating.
You're just Nature Boy. You're just like floating in the trees. It's amazing.
Yep. I don't listen. You just said Insane
I love
Clown
you just
Posse.
said I don't listen.
No, I don't. I'm basically going deaf. Insane Clown Posse feels more welcoming of everybody than this movie does. That's where I was really going. I mean, like, the Insane Clown Posse is, I'm uncomfortable being associated with them, but I think they would, if gay men around the world were like, no, juggalos are awesome, the juggalo community would be like, fuck yeah, we did it.
And I swear, all it would take is like, it would just take one weird article that out.com publishes that's like, did you know the average juggalo has a huge dick?
Or like, magnets, queen, how do they work? Like,
just swear to God, it wouldn't even take hard work.
No.
So I'm a little thrown off by this, but it got me thinking about why I'm thrown off by this and why it bothers me. So like I said on air recently, I saw The Batman, had a great time, really enjoyed myself. But one of the things...
Don't agree.
What? That I had a great time and enjoyed myself?
No, I did not have a great time. I did not enjoy myself.
Well, I mean...
I just even tried to rewatch it. And like I've been trying to like get in on the pay. For one thing, I didn't realize they changed his name to Oz Cobb.
That's actually what I was gonna say. That's what I'm bringing up. They said they changed his name to Oz Cobb so that he would be, less dorky and comic booky and cooler. And one of the things that it sort of just wound up doing was reminded me that, like, can you imagine? Now, first of all, I'm very comfortable saying this because I'm happy to bench 2 plates on either side anytime, put 90s in my hands. I'm good to go. But I would love to walk into a football training camp and just go, I'm big and strong, so I get to say that what you guys do, it's cool, but you're all kind of like big baby bitch boys, you know what I mean? And that is genuinely what it feels like a lot of these directors are doing when they come into these enterprises that are worth more than $1 billion. I love when these directors come in and say that, like, Batman's not cool enough and we have to make him cooler. I'm sorry, Matt Reeves, do you generate $1 billion a year by yourself? No? Okay, calm down then on saying things are a little too antiquated and could use a tune-up.
I mean, it's weird because they are ostensibly in some ways not 100% wrong. Because
I don't think Oz Cobb's is any cooler.
I don't think Oz Cobb is any better. And I think this is where we get into so like I get the idea that sometimes comic book stuff feels inaccessible. Batman is the Batman is a really bad example because Christopher Nolan already came in a while ago and said, this is too comic booky. I'm going to make it real. I'm going to make it more grounded in reality. And I did not even enjoy how grounded in reality those were. They're still pretty hammy and comic booky. They're just very dark and gritty. Sorry, putting that in quotes because it's fucking nothing. But Matt Reeves, I think, took it a step too far. And like, you could have said something like, I really loved the stylistic legacy that Christopher Nolan pulled into this, and I want to borrow from the same bank. I don't want to do Burton and Schumacher, which I don't agree with. I'm ready to go back to those. I would like high camp for Batman, not lower camp, which is why none of these are sticking for me. And then this is why now Todd Phillips is fucking things up too, which I'm also realizing that, not realizing, I'm Googling and seeing the credits. Hangover and Road Trip. I knew at one point.
But like, Sony Philips CD is doing the best they can.
I mean, those movies were at least funny, and I mean, they're comedies. They're supposed to be old school as well. All funny movies, old school. Shout out to Ellen Pompeo.
My dad is like, oh, so we're watching the new season of Only Murders, and yes. I don't like that guy you like. And I'm like, well, first of all, Eugene Levy is one of the sexiest men on the planet, so you bite your tongue. And my dad was like, oh God, no. No, that other one, that young one who you find him funny, and I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about. And he's like, no, okay. That other one, that guy, the one who's not the other guy. And I'm like, oh, Zach Galifianakis. I can't think of anybody I care about less than Zach Galifianakis. But my dad was like,
I mean, come on, fellow Greek.
Well, and that's even his point. His point was kind of like, he's sort of in that ilk of humor you're into. He's sort of part of that, like, that young but also abstract. I kind of think that he's right. I would absolutely do it Between Two Ferns and make you all watch it.
Is he remembering? Wasn't Zach Galifianakis on True Calling? Is that what he's remembering? Maybe.
It's one of those.
The lab guy.
He does have a serious role in his. It's like the last of that Sarah Silverman, Andy Dick on Star Trek ilk.
Yeah, Kristen Wiig doing dramas and being like,
I'll take Totoro. So it's anyone's game.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna talk about that later. I know Zach Galifianakis is the only thing I would say is like fellow Greek. Like he's paving the way for Greek boys, but like. I do not see Zach Galifianakis humor primarily as you humor at all. And I say this as somebody who is a little too charmed by Zach Galifianakis humor.
And me.
And you, like very separate. Those things are very separate in my head though. And I like when I and it's kind of similarly, I guess, in its own way. Jonah Hill, maybe. Thank you, Kevo.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, I mean, Seth. That's a whole other ball game.
That's the love of my life right there.
I know, and I do that one. I do understand that, and the humor there, I think, is very you as well. And I don't think Zach Galifianakis humor and Seth Rogen humor are at all the same. Anyway,
wow, I'm really impressed for the way you're standing up for beardos.
Oh, I love beard. I love them. Todd Phillips has employed Zach Galifianakis humor to substantial financial effect. The Hangover movie's incredibly popular. What Old School was like a generation of guys that annoyed the shit out of me's favorite movie. And again, shout out to Ellen Pompeo.
It was there. It was like all of the guys who would go on to be like, no, The Hangover is why I actually went to college. Whole reason.
Right.
Their dad's favorite movie that they showed them.
No, I mean, it's not even that. It's like, it's like the guys, my group of high school friends, the heterosexual men that I was, the boys that I was friends with in high school, all loved Old School, in that very, like, we are in college and it's like Will Ferrell is funny to us. The idea that Will Ferrell would like come be part of our college experience is funny. And then they aged into, we could actually live The Hangover. We are the age of The Hangover. We could actually live that film. All this aside, at least these movies have humor and joy. And it really feels like Joker and Folie à Deux are trying to enter the Matt Reeves joylessness sphere of Batman filmmaking. Hilarious doubly because everybody is like, no, this is not, that Joker is not Robert Pattinson's Joker, and those two will never meet or cross over, and this Joker has no Batman.
And when you're talking about something like a Joker that has no Batman, one of the things that I think is so interesting is Joker is just about the only villain who really stands on his own strictly as a villain. Dr. Doom, humanity, good guy at times. Magneto, humanity, good guy at times. But think about that. If you could only name 10 cultural superheroes, and you could only give them each one villain, you would have to give Batman a spot on that list, and you would have to give Joker a spot on that list. Yeah. And I think of everyone you could put on that list, Lex Luthor, Joker, Cheetah, sorry about it, Wonder Woman, Reverse Flash, well, Dip, Apocalypse, Magneto, Red Skull. The only one of them who could pack a movie theater for just their weird fucking garish drag queen makeup. By the way, Hot Older Boyfriend said Batman is basically just in drag, and I had the greatest moment of my life because Batman is the ultimate drag king. Absolutely, without question. He is the ultimate drag king. But I mean, and in that same way, Joker is probably the only villain who matches his hero. And that is why Joker can have a movie. And we have never yet gotten X-Men Origins Magneto, no matter how badly Michael Fassbender nearly got it with X-Men Origins.
Sabretooth matches Wolverine like Batman matches the Joker, but Sabretooth does not have the Joker's cachet as a villain. And I would not suggest going to the Sabretooth movie or creating it in the first place. You are right. Joker is nearly singular in being the villain that you could make a protagonist, because again, villains and heroes are not the same as protagonists and antagonists.
Nope.
And so the Joker is really one of very few villains that you could make a protagonist of a film. But then if you're gonna do that, I don't know how you get so far away from Mark Hamill in the animated series. I don't know how you cast Lady Gaga and then start talking about how it's not a musical. I'm comfortable. It's perfection. How was it putting it together?
You guys will all see the video of me and
good.
Oh yeah, there's a build along video.
Good.
And
Good.
Rich narrated it.
Oh God.
Oh my God. Him playing with the figures as we build it is one of the most life-changing experiences I've ever survived.
As long as his hair is out, I'll be happy with it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just, I'm glad you started there because great reminder that DC does not have its shit together any better than Marvel does.
And, you know, with that, though,
Yeah.
there is one more thing that I do want to mention.
About DC?
Yes.
Okay.
But also in relation to Marvel. Something that I think about is the fact that Marvel has never really had a grasp on television the way that DC will forever be the last major Uber franchise. You know, Kevo and I have spent the last couple of months going through all of Grey's Anatomy and its 2 companion shows, Station 19 and Private Practice. We're eager to go back and grab whatever web series that exists because, man, web series are the best. One of the best sitcoms of all time for us is Happy Endings, and our favorite Happy Endings jokes come from Happy Rides, the episode-long web series that you can compress into an episode with one plot. A bunch of it's directed by the cast. So quality to this day. Because Kevo, we do to do.
We don't to don't. Do you know how many times a day I get excited for the phone to ring and it's just Penny?
I swear to God, Kevo, every time you say that joke and it's from that, I lose my mind. And so we're going to go grab those. But one of the things that's important to recognize is that DC did something Marvel could never hope to accomplish. The CW verse is the single most impressive television enterprise for me in history. Nothing has as many episodes in quite as few years outside of As the World Turns or All My Children. And this did it with 80 times the budget and maybe not quite twice the excitement because nobody does anything as hard as soap actors do everything. And as a boy who grew up going to soap opera weekends at MGM Studios and saw Susan Lucci perform Swonderful before BB Mac came out and did I Can Tell to some fireworks, let me just tell you.
Love it. Didn't know if you were already ramping up to something with that, but you mentioned the CW verse.
Which is the Arrowverse.
Yeah, the Arrowverse as sensibly. Did you hear about the Stephen Amell quote from this
That
week?
is exactly what I'm bringing up.
And I even wanted to dive in, so good.
Stephen Amell felt pretty peeved about a joke about Green Arrow over on Peacemaker. I just want to say, as somebody who reads as many Peacemaker books a month as Green Arrow books a month, and that is 3, I am, because Peacemaker is in Task Force 7, and then he's in all of the Absolute Power as a result.
Is he? I guess is he in Task Force 7?
He's the person working for Waller directly.
I know, like I've seen him at the home base.
He's in it. That like I just mean
he's present at the event. I fully get that. Yeah. Okay.
You know, I feel like Peacemaker doesn't make a shittier joke about Green Arrow than Green Arrow has ever made about the comics as a TV show. I think anytime Stephen Amell ever said, well, we're a little bit grittier than the books, all that happened there is exactly what Peacemaker said about the CW verse. And he did not always talk about every issue of the comics with respect. So if somebody made a joke at your expense, dude, grow up. You made a lot of jokes at a lot of other people's expense. Or I'm sorry, were we too unioned for you?
The quote specifically was not him saying he felt it was made at his expense. And I do want to stress, I do completely agree. He has made a lot of comments about the CW verse. A lot of comments sort of ramping it up more than it is. Again, scabbing. All of that not great. But I actually did really appreciate the quote that I read because the quote from Peacemaker has specifically been hyped as at the expense of Arrow. And I actually don't like the idea of the film verse making jokes at the expense of the TV verse, because I do agree with what he did say, which is they kind of were made to feel small. And like you said, they did put in a lot of hard work. They did accomplish something really amazing. So I appreciated him at least framing it in this instance as being defensive of this thing that so many people were a part of that was really amazing and kind of has stronger legs than any attempt at making a film franchise so far.
You're right. Stephen Amell is really a champion of people's rights when it comes to the authenticity of the art they're making.
No. Yes, I mean, that's funny. Let's also not forget that we are not in the Gunverse yet. Like, we're not. Peacemaker is closer to.
Not in the Gunverse yet?
Get out of here, you fuck.
We're not in the Gunverse?
Peacemaker is closer to being part of the Arrowverse than it is to.
Thank you. That is my point.
Yeah.
It is the TV verse. Eat a dick, Stephen Amell.
Well, I
Calm
mean,
down.
so like the thing that I go to is.
No, please don't eat whatever you'd like.
Yeah, dicks, whatever is in front of you.
Croissant.
Calamari.
Whatever Canadians eat.
Is he Canadian?
I thought so.
Gross.
Maybe not.
The
Poutine.
crisis that the Arrowverse produces includes Burton's Batman and a bunch of the HBO DC streaming, like everything that wasn't on. And then we had
my dad. Doesn't it include my dream dad of all time?
who? You have so many. Don't
Isn't
act like it's just
no.
one.
There's one that wins
What?
against all of them. Batman Beyond Bruce.
Yeah, for like 2 seconds, it's Kevin Conroy once.
Yeah. Sorry, Kevin Conroy.
that's why.
Thank you. Kevin Conroy is in it. I do not believe he's playing. I guess technically he would be playing that Bruce Wayne. Maybe
It's implied. It's not correct.
right. But like Titans, which was streaming and on HBO, which to me is like, if Titans made that joke, I would maybe be a little offended because Titans is of the same ilk and quality as the rest of as the Arrowverse, but it's on HBO, so the budget is different, the episode order is different, the storytelling is different, and I would get being like, well, yeah, we can't tell the same stories you guys have because we have to do it differently. Peacemaker is a comedy. It is kind of in a limbo of nowhere. It's based on another comedy. I don't know. I just that like none of this is anything to me. And the Arrowverse and everything about the DC TV thing is also really fascinating because it includes Supergirl, which originated on CBS, not on CW, came over to CW. Like, there's just DC did not and has never had the same umbrella that Marvel has had, which has been cool to see them play around with like 8 different places where they tell serialized stories and then to pull them all together in various ways. But also, like, don't worry about it. It's one thing can't really touch the other. I guess it would be like if Catherine Hahn were like, oh, fucking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. storytelling problems. And then Chloe Bennett was like, listen, Logan Paul deserves my love, but also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was great.
Wait, is Chloe Bennett dating Logan Paul?
I don't know if they're together anymore, but she did not immediately get rid of him after the Japanese suicide forest incident. That is what I will say. That is why I stopped championing having more Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I love her so much. And the fact that she did not immediately say, I have left this man after the Japanese suicide forest incident meant that I could no longer champion Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the way I had been hoping to.
I just don't ever want to hear anybody ever say anything shitty about Angelica ever again for the rest of my fucking life for staying with Justice. If Cheryl Hines is going to stay with that idiot Kennedy, and if Chloe Bennett put up with literally one of the 5 most reprehensible people of my lifetime.
Yep, fully that.
It's
love
like
is complicated, I guess.
It's like Elon, JK, him, Trump and Hitler. Like, it's those
Yeah.
five. And
Yeah.
like, you
Well,
know.
and I'm not, I mean, I never really enjoyed it, but I am not giving Grimes a chance ever again.
No, when Jonah was like, listen to Mitski, I was like, fine. When Jonah was like, listen to Grimes, I was like, I have standards. Speaking of standards, I do just want to take a moment to say that when we're talking about comics and we're making these sorts of ostentatious jokes, we're doing it kind of in the tradition of roasting. We're doing it in the tradition of reading your girls, right? And these are all of our good Judies because we're parasocialites. And we really... I am a creator. I have had some really horrific reviews. I have had some editors say to me, this book is so ugly, it doesn't even look like a comic book. I have had,
and similarly, you're not far from being a contemporary of a bunch of these writers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Check McGlad Award.
I mean,
I'm kidding.
No, but when it comes to sometimes, because you really do get into a thing of like, this is why I think we're really careful when it comes to Drag Race coverage of being like, wasn't effective for me. I thought this person did better by my eye, rather than going with like, oh, that's a busted bitch. She couldn't even wear that dress, because we have no idea. I could not do any of that stuff. And similarly with comics, I think we are both, I mean, again, like, you have the creds. I do not, although I do a lot of the work and hope to someday be a contemporary. But, I think all of that aside, we do spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to say, like, didn't work for me, wasn't the best work, maybe not the best period, but never like, this guy sucks, this creator sucks. That, we've never really done that.
I do just want to say that something that I feel like gets lost a little bit is that when you're talking about a creator and you're talking about what it takes to create something, one of the greatest artists I've ever personally been a friend of, Chongo ATX, please check him out on Twitter. Go out and buy out his Redbubble store. If you leave one item in that store, you're a dummy. Chongo is one of the most unbelievably kind and talented artists I've ever known. And one time, a mutual friend who was a brilliant, major big three comic creator said to Chongo, hey, talk with me a little bit, and also talked with me a little bit about this same unbelievable relaunch. And no, our ideas were never stolen. No, our ideas weren't pilfered. Absolutely not. But you speak with your peers and you speak with your intellectual equals. And, so something that I think happens, TK, that maybe you don't get credit for the same way I didn't get credit for when I helped an editor at Marvel 15 years ago with or 20 years ago now with a big project. Your fandom shapes things. Take a look at somebody like, former representative of XI4P and now, queen of House of X, Dylan, and how Dylan's fandom has gone on to contribute to the bigger picture of fandom. And so, TK, I do just want to say, as somebody who has had you beta scripts for him, one of the things that I think sometimes gets left behind on the cutting room floor is the number of people whose voices helped shape these characters. And I do just want to say to that, Jason, friend of mine, man, I love so much. Guy I think is so cool, so talented, and so unbelievably right for the big three at comics, who deserves his success. The three people you based your Dazzler on are not the right three people. It was Dua Lipa, it was Haley Williams, and I forget the third person he said in the notes at the back of the book. And I just want to be like, the focus, I think it might have been Lady Gaga even, the focus on these three women is why I felt like this was not the right Dazzler. When you think about Grace Jones and you start at Grace Jones for Dazzler, you're in the right ballpark. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was really great. If this book had been called Lila Cheney, I would have thought this was terrific.
Taylor Swift was the third one.
Thank you.
No.
But Taylor Swift is too mainstream for a book about coming into your own on stage. This was a master class by a master voice doing what should have been an original character for me.
I did not have the same experience. I didn't have the same experience, but I'm glad that you started here because I like what you're saying. Dazzler is a weird character because we have established many times Tony Stark, Emma Frost, Warren Worthington are borderline celebrities due to their financial wealth. And there is a degree to which a lot of characters in the Marvel Universe are plausibly famous outside of being superheroes. It's a little weird after all of this time that nobody has ever really established that Dazzler, what tier of celebrity Dazzler is. She is not a Taylor Swift. There's no way she's a Taylor Swift. No, most people in our real world are not Taylor Swifts. But if Dazzler were a Taylor Swift, financially she would be competitive with Emma and Tony for, you know, how she could contribute what she earns to the world. And a lot of times she's like, I literally just fell out of my car to go to this gig. I'm the biggest mutant celebrity singer, you know, this celebrity musician there is. And so many times it's like, yeah, I'm literally pulling up to the club in this Dodge Dart that I can barely afford. And so Taylor Swift doesn't really work for me. Dua Lipa, same thing, unfortunately. I mean, at this point, especially, Hayley Williams, again, like, Hayley Williams might be the closest, but you're talking about Hayley Williams in 2005, at which time she's like 14, and the success is that she has this voice and is a pop punk emo princess, which is just not Dazzler's storyline. All that aside, like, so if that was the goal, I don't know that it was met for me. I don't know that I took that away from it. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. We're back to my huge problem always being it's wrong for this era. In this era where I'm being told in the 3 primary X books, like literally people have to do the secret mutant symbol because God forbid anybody around them know who they are. We have Dazzler doing full mutant shows where like everybody in the crowd is also a mutant, and things are cool and fine. And we juggle that with Shark Girl has to put on the image inducer. It's a weird place to be in where editorial says we are. This really feels like it would have made sense as like a Dazzler goes off of Krakoa with this crew to do to export some Krakoan culture, arts and culture into the mainstream.
You know, and part of what is specifically on my mind with this is when you say coming hot off the energy from, Krakoa and Dazzler being so big from Krakoa, and then you do nothing with it. Like, there's this thing that's going on in the X books right now over in the pages of X-Men where O-Force showed the fuck up. How dare you? I'm kind of not even kidding. How dare you, actually? Why would you bring up a book about feeling like a minority, about feeling like somebody who is literally forced to perform? You know, when you think about like queerness, when you think about being othered, and this idea that X-Force Ecstatics represented the idea of otheredness within the confines of the Marvel Universe. And then this straight man comes along, and this straight white man, no offense, but accurate, comes along and says, these minorities, these people who were stand-ins for otheredness, now they're huge villains. And they respect a villain who has literally committed genocide against their people, and his nature, his ability, his very fabric is to eat other people like him. And so you get this idea of the O-Force is now following Trevor Fitzroy. Trevor Fitzroy, who is a villain who is supposed to be opposite, a character that was designed to be Filipino and then ultimately became black as a result of editorial.
Don't forget the stop off in Aboriginal.
Oh gosh. And
which we still might be at because we're not really clear if Bishop is related to Gateway
or Storm. And
yep.
So we get into this place where there is so much appropriation running around the X books in a time where they're saying they're celebrating the quality of success that they critically received under the Krakoan era. And I'm left wondering how any of this makes sense. Why is Jason Lowe, who is absolutely one of the finest voices in comics, why is he writing a book that really, I can't think of an ongoing Dazzler title ever written by a woman. I can't think of an ongoing Dazzler book ever written from the perspective of somebody who has experienced being like, I've been a touring musician. I'm not saying that I could write better than Ding, Wing, Ring, Bling, or whatever, but as somebody who's had a number one song on a metric on Spotify, and you can eat my dick, it exists. Like, as somebody who can claim that, I looked at these lyrics and felt a little bit like, you definitely went to the Denny O'Neil school of writing lyrics. And that's not to say that Jason Lowe isn't an incredibly talented lyricist. If you told me that Jason Lowe has an incredible band, I would believe it because he is such a cool guy and such an incredibly cool creator. But this issue felt like, number one, it was not him. This did not feel like Jason's work. And as somebody who's had like 4 on-air conversations with this man, I feel confident saying it didn't feel like the truest his voice has ever sounded in a book that I've read. Not that I know him that well personally, but, you know, parasocialism, let's just do it. I find myself feeling, as a touring musician, as a professional musician, as somebody who you guys can go check out my music, I arrange the music playing in the background. I wrote the songs that are original playing in the background when it's an original piece of music. This didn't fit the needs of a musician. This did not fit the needs of a member of a qualified minority who was coming out as proud. Like, the fact that I'm a bald man, unless I have a hat on, I can't come out as bald. I'm bald. You see me. I'm bald. Fine. You come out as a mutant. You come out as gay. And there was nothing that this needed to be called out and proud. Taking advantage, just absolutely taking advantage. It did not feel genuine. It felt really like this was editorial asking a brilliant writer to do a less than genuine job.
I'm going to agree with that. I really do not love that this was titled Out and Proud, written by I don't know, maybe we don't know enough about Jason Lowe, but somebody who is not vocally queer right now.
A big fan of queer people.
Big ally, that's fantastic.
Big ally. What a
but
great
also,
ally.
Not a woman. Like, it's Declan Shalvey's writing Mystique coming up. We have a third one. Storm is not written by a woman as well. Sometimes it's not enough just to be a minority. And of course, there is overlap in minority experience. There's intersectionality. There are times where you cannot be the identity of the character you are writing and still do justice to their minority status. It is just that women don't really write Dazzler that much. Like, we're not at a point where it's just like, you know, Marvel, this bastion of making sure that everything gets represented, had so many books out that they eventually just had to see whichever writer was available got to do Dazzler. We're not there yet. Whichever, like, black women have not been writing Storm solos. So the Storm solo should be written by a black woman. And the fact that we have a black man who I think is really dedicated, not a bad second option. And I think this is somebody who really gets Storm and is putting effort into this. So I'm not like, this is unacceptable. But again, Declan Shalvey is still writing this Mystique book. And I just don't, I know that one we could save. Mystique just should be written by a woman. Erica Schultz is already in the building doing work.
Erica Schultz, why aren't we just taking a minute to say, is there an editor capable of matching her output? She is capable of giving you a book that will change canon, but doesn't need to affect the things going on around it. And the editors that she is working with seem to want to be like, yeah, but can you touch stuff that no one cares about?
Yeah, like let's get this new Punisher in the mix. That's key. Let's put Bologna in a book.
OSCAR.
I do think Bologna is cool, but yeah, I like Jason Lowe a lot. I do think this was a good book. This is a position I hate to be in, where I just, no matter what, I don't want him to have written this, only because I know women who are trying to break into comics, who are talented, who are capable, who have the credentials. Let them do it. I'm sorry. I hate it because, his Werewolf by Night, a great place for him to be. Maybe right now, not like top of my rotation, but I think totally appropriate. Also, a lot of stuff in this book is great for him. He uses his signature character, Jamie Madrox, Domino being in the mix. Awesome. Like, everything about it is cool, except it shouldn't be a Dazzler book. Because a woman should be writing a Dazzler book right now for where we are. And then on top of that, you talked about, can an editor match Erica Schultz's energy? I don't think editorial is matching Jason Lowe's vision of where mutants are and where mutant culture is. He feels really like, and I say this in like the good way, in the way that like we all said it before it got co-opted. He feels mutant woke. Like, he feels like he got what the ideas of mutant culture were. And again, this just feels like a book that's taking place during Krakoa, but for a few comments that make clear that it's not, that's another thing where I'm just like, it's really good, but I don't want him to be writing it for Dazzler. And then it's really good, but it's not matching this era, because this era isn't great. And this era is also consistently saying, fuck mutant culture. It's not a thing. Everybody's on the run. Like, you can't, and there's no, including with this book, there's no attempt to be like, everybody's on the run, so the culture is coming together, maybe in forums or on whatever the Marvel Universe version is of TikTok, because everybody on the run is communicating via social media and exchanging ideas. No, we've really just been told over and over again, they're in hiding. They're in bases in Alaska. They're dying in hospitals, getting covert visited by the X-Men. They can't get into concerts and they have to run when somebody sees that they're a mutant. So how is, I said this earlier, but like, how is Dazzler having a show in a popular metropolitan area where chicken-faced boys are showing up? Like, that's just not what this era is. So letting this book go out like that doesn't make sense.
It's why I feel that X Factor is just,
didn't read it yet.
It's a huge clunk.
Yeah, I mean, the first one really was, and that's why, like, sometimes it's really tough to get it up to read these books for the show. Like, that's a weird place that we're in. Sometimes, like, the way we used to do it, I would be like, I literally don't know if I have the hours available to read the stuff that we're going to talk about today, but I'm so stoked because it's like Krakoa at its best. And we've gotten to this point where we're really hyper focusing on one issue at a time, which, when we pick great ones, I'm super stoked about, and I get really into the study of the two issues that we're talking about. But then it really, when I have to look at other stuff from this era, getting the excitement and the energy together is so tough.
And, when I read X Factor today, one of the things that definitely pierced my mind was, how is this the Alex that was the Alex at the end of Krakoa?
Yeah.
How does this celebrate anything that came before it?
Yeah.
And, if I'm giving grades across the board, X-Men gets like a C, Dazzler gets like a C, X-Factor gets like a C minus. I didn't really have a great week with the X books this week. But where I did have a pretty good week, Spirits of Vengeance #1. This was not an A.
No.
But if you can give a B bordering on B minus with A plus energy, if you can vibe someone so good, I don't know. I loved the way this issue started, and then the guy turned into like a creepy, rapey kind of like side character for no reason out of nowhere. And I guess what I remembered is something you said earlier this episode. Protagonism does not mean you are the main character. And when you start this issue, you think you're starting an issue about these minor characters. Maybe one of them will become the new Ghost Rider. Maybe one of them will take over for this walrus-looking scarecrow motherfucker. And
you knew what you were looking at right when you saw that.
I didn't. I genuinely wondered if one of them was going to temporarily become the Ghost Rider for one issue. I wondered if Spirits of Vengeance was truly about the idea of vengeance connecting with whoever needed it at that moment.
Which, to be fair, we did get into at the end of Percy's run when Vengeance was running around going into everybody before it selected the Hood.
Yeah, and
but anyway, continue.
I found myself wondering if these characters were likely to, for the reason that they were abandoned, maybe their friends were secretly pranking them, and maybe these two people were going to share the power of vengeance to get revenge on being treated so poorly by their friends. Ultimately, when it turned into sort of a moralist story about a creepy dude mistreating a young woman, and that the need for vengeance would ultimately be powerful enough to bring the Ghost Rider around. One of the things that we talk about when we talk about wokeness is an inability to avoid wokeness as a focal point of the storytelling. And if you have a problem with that, well, then you're small and I'm sorry for you. But if you're somebody who hopes for slightly better from your woke stories, I need my gay characters to be a little bit more than like, no, you don't like the village, Papa, I'm gonna fight you with drag. Like, that's not cute.
Where is that happening?
I have to assume that that's how black voices feel when white voices write black revenge stories.
Fair.
I have to feel that that is how Muslim readers feel when non-Muslim people write their spirituality. And seeing who is clearly a man write a story about the evil that men do, where the only good guys are men, a little bit bothered me because the only other bad guys are women who are just designed to be evil.
No.
But
oh man, fuck! I didn't think about that.
Yeah, the portrayal of women between Dazzler and Spirits of Vengeance was sort of like, don't women just happen to fall into situations men set up for them? But one of the things that Spirits of Vengeance sought to do was Johnny's reaction to the women was devoid of gender. He was like, no, this is just mind control.
He definitely punches one of them in the face in a very gender neutral way.
He's not like
in a very
you're
just a villain way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just full on, no. You would be showing me visions of my mother or saving my brother. Yeah. You're just evil.
Yeah.
And that was what made Spirits of Vengeance really special. Dazzler sought to tell me that it understood gender identity by showing me a man understands women. What I really appreciated was Spirits of Vengeance sacrificed the idea that a man's story needs to be about a man or defending a woman. It actually isn't that this Ghost Rider was defending a woman. He was just killing a bad guy. And that's what elevated and escalated what I now know, thanks to your research, to be the debut issue on Ghost Rider by a voice who clearly should be sticking around on these characters for a hot minute.
Yeah, so Sabir Pirzada has been writing a lot of Miss Marvel lately. He has been writing all of the solo Miss Marvel post mutant reveal.
So that's with Iman Vellani.
Yep.
The co-writing.
I guess I don't. His name is on the books. I don't
Amazing.
really. And then a bunch of symbiote stuff, a bunch of misery. And right now, like today, it's great week for him. He's got this and Venom War Lethal Protectors, which actually is to me a pretty cool looking book.
It reads well.
Did you read it already?
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm excited for that one.
I'm
sure.
caught up on Venom War to the
Oh,
day.
that's right. You got to read everything today.
I am caught up on Venom War to the day. I have been catching up on
Nice.
Venom War for a few weeks.
Nice.
If for no other reason, I really enjoy comic stories where they're like, oh, nope, the kid has to kill the dad.
Yeah.
NBD, we'll figure out how it goes.
I do love that too.
Cape cucking is always really exciting.
Yeah. Kick the shit out of your dads, people. My first thought was there's something very Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer about this setup of we're in a cornfield doing ill-advised horror trope shit that is going to tumble into Ghost Rider shit. Like, it's when Percy took over Ghost Rider like 3 years ago, that was immediately what drew me to that book and made me think that book was really fantastic. Was he was pulling from different horror tropes, but a lot of horror tropes. He was really trying to indicate to you, I am taking Marvel pulp horror characters and doing the most that I can with them in a big two. Clearly we're not going to do like gross out violence, and clearly I can't, like, there's not going to be swearing, there's not going to be a bunch of stuff that Marvel or DC are never going to do, but I'm going to tell the best horror story that I can. And his was all very body horror, all very Hellblazer. And Sabir Pirzada, who was a story editor and writer on Roswell, New Mexico, very clearly is coming from the Kevin Williamson, 90s school of horror in a great way. So, like, maybe not a great way, but
I just want to say, Kevo, please come in for the love of God.
Get on in here.
If you have ever loved a Tori Amos album, for real.
No, I know. I thought we were going to talk. Okay. Okay.
Watches like a Tori Amos album. The levels of emotion, the amount of like back and forth, the kind of like, there's a sense of a Tori album that is purposefully push and pull that messes you up a little bit. When you go from She's Your Cocaine, and it's like literally Tori touching herself in the music studio, into Northern Lad, where she is literally bemoaning the idea that she didn't evolve enough to be with this person who refused to evolve to be with her. She blames herself for not being greater than he was. The song after it, like the third song about orgasms on the record, you're talking about a really complex series of ideas that deal with the identity of I almost said desperation, but I think what I mean is despair and depression. And Roswell, New Mexico is about coming out the other side of so many dark, painful things. And the entire show starts with 4 or 5 characters all having major traumas that the entire show is slowly healing them from. And I just think that Roswell, New Mexico might be the finest show to come out of the CW for me ever. Like, genuinely. Roswell, New Mexico is the show I always dreamed I would get as a kid. And just knowing that this writer got to be part of that incredible legacy, just knowing that this writer got to be a part of something I love as much as I love Star Trek Discovery for what it did to push boundaries for its tropes. I don't know. Kevo, how do you feel about knowing that somebody who was a part of Roswell, New Mexico, a show about forgiveness, is writing Ghost Rider, a book about revenge?
I think you already touched a lot on the general concept of that with Todd Phillips at the start of this episode. You go from old school to Joker. Man, do people have range? Love all the Roswell, New Mexico praise because it was a super cute show that did a lot of things. It did a lot of that. It had a lot to say about everything that was going on at the border because it was about a lot of people with Mexican heritage and how that was affecting a community in New Mexico and how it would affect that area. So, yeah, there was a lot to it. They tried to put a lot into it while still recognizing that they were a CW show. And that is something about storytelling as well, is that you really have to balance, the content that you're trying to go for versus the package that it's in.
It also is the only show I can think of to this day that has ever shown a Greek man with Greek hair being incredibly Greek and having it pulled by a gay man who is making out with him. So,
plus male, female threesome.
Yeah, this was one of the only shows that was like, no, polyism is totally normal. Just calm the fuck down. It really was a breathtaking opportunity. So knowing that the guy who is working on Ghost Rider, a thing that is sort of synonymous with Nick Cage overacting in a mirror, like we are talking about in some ways, and obviously I am overstretching and just stop me at some point and we'll move on to the next book. But we're kind of talking about when a guy like Frank Miller said that Batman could be so much more than just silly costumes. He said, this is more potent. The writers of Roswell, New Mexico said this is so much greater than just a YA series, certainly not to dismiss or diminish YA series. And he said this is more than a WB series. And I really feel like Roswell, New Mexico might be the forgotten gem of its TV generation in a lot of ways. And just seeing that this writer has their hand in 3 major franchises at Marvel gives me a little bit of hope for 2025 on this show, praising Marvel a little more than DC.
I think that also goes back to your opening point about people saying that they want to elevate something, the statements that were made about the Joker and the Batman as sort of trying to make those concepts better in that way. And I think that was what you were expressing frustration with. It's not that there is anything wrong with saying you want to reinvent or reinvigorate or reignite a concept. Yep. It's more what you actually say and do about it and about the original and how you feel about the original, whether or not you're kind of disparaging the original to make it something new. That's really almost never. There's bad stuff out there. Sure, I'm not getting deeper, but like it's rarely, if ever, necessary to denigrate the original to try and elevate something new and to try and make a new version.
Unless you're Dune.
Yeah, exactly. Asterisk.
Boo. This is a really interesting place to be because I feel like it's the thing that I just said, which is like Percy showed up and reminded us that Ghost Rider is horror, and we're gonna do a horror book. Like we're pulling this, but his idea of horror was very Percy-esque and in a great way. Like there was a lot that I loved, but immediately it's body horror, it's demons, it's Hellblazer. Like it's very dialed into what you can tell is Percy's fascination with horror, and that's great. He told some fantastic stories with it. I don't feel Marvel supported that as much as I would have liked, but I don't feel that Percy did anything glaringly bad. Sabir Pirzada comes in and immediately we get a different kind of horror. It's still horror, but we're getting that classic parable of, what happens when teenagers are sexually active in a horror film. Something, it used to be very much that like, well, now they're being punished for being sexually active, so they're going to get stabbed at makeout point. But this gave us very much like, yeah, if you're a guy and you get rapey with a girl, you're about to experience some horror consequences.
pain you will never recover from.
And I'm excited about that. Like somebody coming in and being like, yeah, I'm still committed to this being horror, but I'm going to do this instead. That we go into a sort of mythopoeic zone with Johnny Blaze doing some siren fighting, harpy fighting. Really fun. Sure. This has a ton of potential. Your critiques are all valid, and for me, I think it's one of those things where I'm just like, you know, I came into this show and came into my own on this show lamenting that a character that I will love forever, Mayday Parker, never got out from under the pencil of Tom DeFalco, really. And seeing Ghost Rider, which has really been boosted by Ben Percy's hard work, but it can't just be Ben Percy. Seeing that get out from under his pencil and being under Sabir Pirzada's for a minute, that to me, like, I kind of even forgot to be as critical on this book as I maybe ought to have been, because that concept is so exciting to me and is so often missing from Marvel work.
Part of why that is so important is because the idea that Marvel horror is one thing, or the idea that Marvel mutants is one thing, is the overwhelming idea that I feel like editorial tries to push.
Yeah.
They say, oh, well, this is the era of this at X-Men.
Yeah.
This is the era of this at Marvel horror. And I feel like they've said this is the era of the vampire and the dark wizard. And so where does the Spirit of Vengeance fit into that? And if it weren't for the fact that they put a major TV writer on this book, I would be a little dismissive. But in the back, Devin Moss, editor of Ghost Rider, talks extensively about how this is the beginning of a new era. I think about people who wrote that in the back of books. And I think about Jordan D. White writing in the back of Krakoa, in the back of House of X #1. This is going to change comics. And if you think that Krakoa didn't change comics, my dear, you have been asleep. Let me tell you about a few things. There's this thing called the telephone. Mm-hmm. That is how severely, that truly Krakoa affected comics. And to that point, though, I think about when, oh God, who was the editor? Unfortunately, I'm forgetting the editor. It might have really truly been Tom Brennan, who was editing Daredevil at the time that Shadowland was starting to lay the groundwork, and Andy Diggle took over with The List and then Daredevil 501. And I think about how that led to an era of Daredevil that didn't really fit the needs of the fandom. But I think about how incredibly excited Tom Brennan was in those editors' pages.
You nailed it, by the way. It was Tom Brennan.
I know very few things as well as I know Daredevil editors in my life.
Like, I'm gonna check, and if he's wrong, I'm not gonna say anything. But if he's right, I feel like we do need to commend the fact that your encyclopedic knowledge of things is vast, but there are times when it is like Wikipedia been corrected for 20 years encyclopedic, and Daredevil is one of those places. And I did want to honor that and just fact check and affirm that you in fact did nail it.
I can't stop smiling because if there's something that I'm really proud of, it's that I've met 65 or so % of the living Daredevil writers and have thanked them for their work, and the editors is at about 50%. And I think about how Tom Brennan included quotes from the original issues of Daredevil that matched. He included a quote from #1 in 501, #2 in 502, #3 in 503, etc. And how he was like, I truly believe this could be the beginning of something new for Daredevil. And it wasn't. But what it led to was perhaps the greatest. I feel so bad because I have called so many people the greatest writer of my lifetime, but there are very, 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 very few people who get to be the greatest writer of my lifetime for multiple books. And I am not embarrassed to say that after reading World's Finest #25, #30, and #31, I bought the whole series. Mark Waid is probably the finest writer of his ilk.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem is the ilk is expansive for poor Mark Waid. But I would say he may be the most underrated.
Yeah. How did you feel? Okay, so to be really clear,
yeah.
Two of my greatest collaborators of my life. If only Tori were here.
Yeah.
She could be here to I can't even think of a word.
Corroborate?
No, it's deeper.
Okay.
To soul agree.
Okay.
Kevo, if you would pop in. Is there anything I love more than a villain whose whole power is to slightly corrupt you into being the darkest version of yourself? And man, ECLIPSO, Onslaught, Zorn, everything that represents the corruption of what you love, of what you think is good. ECLIPSO is probably my number 2 DC villain of all time.
You did point out specifically that you like ECLIPSO, but I do think you are underselling the language that the book used. Which, like, put a pin in that for yourself, because, like, you're talking about a different thing. Slightly corrupts you is a different thing. That is not, that's not the Sentry. That's like Onslaught when he first shows up, but then it's a giant crab shell Magneto psychic horror. They specifically are like, ECLIPSO is going to possess you, and then you will be fully evil and horrible. And if you are not possessed by ECLIPSO, you are fully yourself and somebody who will regret what has happened. So I do just want to say, I like that the trope that you're talking about, and perhaps that has been how ECLIPSO has been used other times, but that is not what is said here. I'm going to check you on that. They are fully like, it's a dude in a crystal,
and you
should
turn
he
blue.
Should he get out of the crystal, he's going to possess you, and you will no longer be in control of your faculties.
Okay, so Dr. Gordon, Dr. Bruce Gordon.
Dr. Bruce Gordon, who is looking like a fucking snack and a half.
He is, dude, back to 1959. He always looks like this. He is the most beautiful character. So he's even a good guy sometimes. I can't explain how much ECLIPSO means to me.
Well, wait, ECLIPSO's a good guy or Gordon's a good guy?
Gordon is always a good man.
Right, because I was going to say, like, they do a really good job of being like, this. They want to give this guy the keys to the city. He's clearly a great guy. Like, it's almost so ill-advised that they're doing this, because he's like just barely off of having been possessed by ECLIPSO.
Dude, when I tell you that literally only Sinestro means more to me in all of DC.
Well, I love that. Anyway, sorry, I've been interrupting you.
Continue. No, ECLIPSO is meant to be shared.
Well, so first off, ECLIPSO and the Amazos. Like, I'm so fucking sick of this. I don't know why. I mean, like, Avengers has Hyperion. Why did Marvel get all the good names? And on top of that,
well, let me ask you a question.
What?
Let me ask you a serious question.
What?
Why is one called the Pinto and one is called the Matrix? Oh, is it because one had the good fortune to come out second? Sure. That's why Hyperion, based on Superman, gets to be cool. But the villains that were created for Superman in the first place are basically licking my foot. It is horrible how many of the did not mean anything terrible to the foot fetishists out there. Obviously, I'm complimenting him there. But okay, ECLIPSO's name is stupid. Yep. Sure. He sounds like he is a dark version of your favorite gum.
Yeah.
But
you can just add O on to things. DC.
Yeah. Supermano. Batman.
Amazo. It's not good. Anyway.
Amazo, Bizarro. I totally
Yes. Agree. What do you, I mean, like, you're going to try and justify this. I don't think you can.
I can't. No, because it's from a million years ago. But what I specifically think was the literal best comic panel of literally 2024 is Superman turning to Bruce Wayne and saying, "You're the world's greatest detective. Their faces are blue. They're possessed by ECLIPSO."
Yes.
Like,
that was in
literally
fact fantastic.
being so fucking angry
Yeah.
that Bruce Wayne was taking 5 minutes to catch up to
Yeah.
Superman
Yeah.
was I guys, ECLIPSO is my literal second favorite DC villain of all time. He is a major ongoing character in 5 of the best years of Green Lantern ever written in the history of the character stretching back to the 1940s. I love ECLIPSO like Magneto. Genuinely, this is one of my absolute favorite characters in all of the DC universe. I would give up Black Hand for DC. I would give up Black Hand for, and I have a Black Hand t-shirt that I walk around in around the house. I would for ECLIPSO. But man, this felt to me like, as someone who loves ECLIPSO as much as I do, the best introduction to this character possible. Not the best issue to feature this character, but I felt like if I were going to try to show TK, Kevo, or Jonah ECLIPSO as people who understand the DC universe, this was the easiest way into my second favorite DC villain of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's World's Finest is clearly doing a job. It is clearly about introducing things, and this is an important book for the thing that we're doing here, because you inevitably know whatever the subject of the issue is.
Oh no, I read too much DC as a kid. Oh,
You're fine. You know, this is for you a really well curated trip down memory lane. I maybe am relying on this a little bit to catch me up. And then on top of that, I think you're relying on it for me, you know, for the issue to kind of get me up to speed with you. And it's a thing we have said the 3 times that we've talked about these is like, I hope you get something out of this issue, or I hope you like this issue because it deals with this thing that I like and is important to me, and I hope it is able to do the job. Inevitably it has. Mark Waid, I really do think fantastic writer, very like I said, I think probably the most underrated. We absolutely have to give it up to Adrian Gutierrez here. Just everybody looks hot. I mean, I think
literally the best new penciler I have seen in 5-10 years. My breath was taken away. I don't think Marvel has anybody this sharp.
I hate Oliver Queen. I think he's cheesy and unsexy. And this and Absolute Power. Who is it on Absolute Power again? I could look it up, but
Dan Mora.
Thank you. Mora and
Mora,
Gutierrez.
Who's doing the covers for all the Absolute Power one-shots, like Super Sun.
Yes, like Super Sun, yeah. These guys are making characters that I find repulsive and repugnant really attractive. And when you've been reading comics for as long as we have, like, I think sometimes that actually is an incredible feat. So, you know, that was another, as immediately I was like, wow, Green Arrow looks really hot. And that's not a thing that I ever feel. Yeah, I mean, this was just a cool, fun issue. Like this is not a solo issue. The last time we covered issue 30 that we covered was essentially a one shot. It was a one issue story.
Oh no, did we cover 30 and 31? Oh no.
Yeah. And I mean, we're probably gonna have to cover 32 because it's a continuation of this, which, you know, I'm super down for. But yeah, I mean, also you nailed it. You pointed to like the hilarious, there's so many hilarious lines here. And
wait, you beat him with super breath? Yeah.
There was that one hit, even just when Bruce comes in, sorry, I'm late. Looks like I missed and then it's not even the writing, it's the combination. Cause yeah, exactly. It's the face that Gutierrez draws for Batman,
yes,
who is kind of unflappable, but of course this would be a moment where one would be flapped.
It kind of reminded me about the really brilliant, stark way Bill D'Elia directs television. The way
Okay.
the Practice and Boston Legal
Yeah.
and later West Wing when Snuffy takes not Snuffy Snuffy's music. Who is the director on West Wing?
Thomas Schlamme.
Thank you, Schlamme.
Wife of Christine Lottie.
Yes, when
Yeah.
Schlamme takes a little bit of a backseat, you know, there was such an incredible opportunity to capture moments. I don't want to overspeak it, but I really thought that the art on 31 reminded me of why cinematographers win Oscars. Like,
Oh, yeah,
there was
no.
something about the capture that was so singular.
Bill D'Elia directed one of your favorite episodes of Grey's The Good Shepherd, just so you know.
Unfortunately, he is Chris D'Elia's father, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I do believe so.
No!
I do believe so.
But you know what? What's his name?
Tom Hanks has that one, so.
Yeah, and there's that other one, the
I
director.
love... yes,
Yeah.
Bill D'Elia is his father. I love Chet Hanks. For one thing, let's all be really honest here. Chet Hanks is not an unattractive young man.
Oh, no. Chet Hanks is stunning, but Colin Hanks is a good actor.
Roswell,
People who like Beth Orton just don't kill themselves.
Mad Men.
ooh.
Again,
Wait,
get
hold
over
on.
it.
By the
With
way, are
Cisco
all
and Ben Foster and Kristen and yeah, what?
is that whole Roswell rant that you had earlier? Does that only apply to Roswell, New Mexico? Does that not cover UPN Roswell?
No, that does not cover WB or UPN Roswell.
Okay.
That was a
UPN
show that
with the
We'll talk about that later.
That was very different. Yeah.
We'll talk about the
I-
sexual awakening I had for Jason Bear.
Oh no, Jason
Oh,
Bear
yeah.
made me discover that I was gay, but Max on Roswell, New Mexico helped me understand that I'm a man who knows how to take care of people. Like,
Sure.
And essentially is just like DeLuca, which is very interesting.
yeah, no, Jason like, we reached a point where characters like Cyclops could no longer just push through. We reached a point where characters like Captain America could no longer just stand for our country. Max's journey in Roswell, New Mexico is so unique, and I've never seen a hero's journey like it. He literally chooses to become the secondary character, like Max does, obviously not the actor. I'm sure the actor wanted more lines, but like Max opts to give Liz the main character role for 2 seasons. Like, Liz on Roswell, New Mexico is perhaps she's a Meredith Grey in terms of excellence. Like, it is really a one-of-a-kind show. You can watch a million shows just like it, and you will never experience anything like getting to be a fan of Roswell, New Mexico.
All right, I'm in. I will say I do like the original Roswell.
It's very good, and Cherie Appleby is literally a legend.
And Jason Bear is in it.
Jason Bear and Cherie Appleby, their turns on Roswell, New Mexico, and the characters they play to the bigger picture of the sequel series are
but it's not a sequel, right?
No, it is
Right.
another
It's-
adaptation of
yeah,
the book
it's-
taken from both.
but it's
Right.
specifically not a reboot. It is not
Right.
the TV show again. It is the books with
Right.
help from the TV show.
Right.
And
But
defined by my Greekness and my Latino-ness, that the leads are Greek and Latino makes me feel just kind of like no matter what part of me I show, I matter. And it is really a one-of-a-kind TV. I didn't realize how badly I needed to rewatch.
Yeah,
this
no, I
show.
mean,
Liz
maybe
is the best character in the universe.
maybe we'll get into that. In the meantime, speaking of alien youngsters who are very attractive, will be one day, because I think they specifically canonically say he's 17 in this issue. So Sinister Sons, are Sons a thing? Like, is Sun branding a thing? Has this been going on for a while?
Fun. Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So
So Sun has always been a
Yeah.
big thing in DC.
yeah. So I love Sun branding. I will say that right now. just 2024
Well,
the year.
because you are the daddiest son of all time. So
Well,
like,
and I just think Sun is very funny. Like I wanted to have the meme queued up, but I have it on my Twitter and I'm gonna repost it. It's just it's a remix of like a pulpy book cover, and it's Cyclops and Cable, and the title of the book is "Someone Please Date My Son. He has a gun and he's a son." I think sons are very funny. I think comic sons are very funny because nobody can just have a fucking child. There's always more to the story, and I was telling you that I was in the midst of Googling everything about John Kent just to like have my ducks in a row. And of course,
you brought up literally my least favorite part of John Kent fiction. I mean, literally the only thing that can stop me from staring at Tyler Hoechlin's abs
is the fact that he has these two children.
That John Kent is enough to stop me from watching that show.
Those two boys are a bummer. It's
Bummer.
absolute bummer that's
Bummer.
and by the way, that's more DC TV that exists that also is not going to be part of this Gunverse.
I only want to be clear that it's a little bit closer to Arrowverse than Titansverse in terms of the way it chooses to be dramatic. The thing that I do not like about Lois and Superman that turns me off from the show is that so many of the plots seem to be, I guess, ABC Family lowest common denominator soap opera plots. I want Peter Burns and Amanda Woodward ending up on an island. I do not want Allison finds out her dad was a creep. And it feels like so much of Superman and Lois is just everyone's a creep.
It's Diary of the American Teenager. Like it is not great at all. And those boys are not
Tyler Hoechlin, way too talented for this show.
And it makes me sad because I really love what I've seen of his performance as Superman, and I've wanted to get into it. But yeah, everything I've seen, same. What's her name? Who is Lois as well? Yeah. They seem to be giving great performances, but this was not the show for these actors and characters and performances.
I also don't agree with you. I don't like Tyler Hoechlin. I don't enjoy his performance as Superman. I don't something about him. I love him in Teen Wolf. Something about him as Superman just absolutely. And the other thing I was thinking is it feels like somebody watched that Man of Steel, Kevin Costner's like, just let the hurricane get me, it's cool moment, and was like, what if we did a whole show where everybody feels like Kevin Costner, and it's just like, just
what it looks like,
just let the hurricane kill me, it's good, just like, obviously that would make the most sense. I love, so like I said, I love sun branding, so I right off the bat, Super Sun, done, I'm sold, I'm here for it. This is I've been fully aware that John Kent exists and is queer and has a boyfriend. I didn't... What? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted.
No.
Have we not read a single book with John other than Trinity at this point?
No. I mean, like, nothing specific. I mean, like, he's, of course, been in Absolute Power. But no,
oh my God, the fact that like I'm so grateful you said that, because as somebody who has literally not missed a single Batman run, a single Detective Comics run, as somebody who's read the last 5 runs, like I really do forget that, like, I it sounds so stupid, but like I secretly read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I secretly read
that shouldn't be a secret.
Yoshibi, I secretly read Yojimbo.
Yojimbo.
Yeah, like I secretly read secretly, but like I just kind of read them in my own time. I don't secretly do anything, but like I'm current on Hellboy. I'm current on a ton of stuff. Like you are secretly, but not secretly, current on a ton of TV shows and a ton of podcasts, and like it must be jarring when I'm sometimes like, oh no, before May, I had only ever seen 10 episodes of the Private Practice, Grey's Anatomy, and Station 19 verse. But to me, sometimes I'm kind of like, wow, you've really only ever read like 7 issues with John. Like, I've read 150, and
Yeah.
it doesn't make you a less good fan, a less powerful fan, or a less dynamic fan. It means that your perspective is unique from mine, and it only makes the show better.
Well, and something happened that is beyond, like, this is not like a DC failed all these years ago, but back in the day, I wasn't quite gripped by DC. I also think my parents were like, you can't spend all of this money on comics. And I chose the X-Men. My parents didn't read comics. I know yours did. So you got access to, like, you had a Batman collection.
My Batman collection went back to 1971.
Right. And so you had a little bit of extra access to DC that meant that it was a little more pick-upable.
I remember Ra's al Ghul's first appearance. Like, that was literally one of the earliest books I owned, and it's why it's such a humongous character for me.
When I got to the point of my own disposable income, I don't know. It was Seven Soldiers, so like I loved Seven Soldiers, defining series for me. But then somehow DC did not sell me on continuing. But when I look at Marvel at that same time, if I'm talking to like Reverse Tim, who was fully DC and not really Marvel, I'm not gonna look at that guy and go like, how did you not get into Marvel in 2004? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to look at somebody who's never been into comics and be like, oh yeah, this was a great era to pick it up. Like this. So I know you're never suggesting that I'm not a good fan or less of a fan for not getting into it, but I do think a lot about like how and why. And it has nothing to do with one company being better than the other, because every time there is an on-ramp for DC for me, Marvel is not doing better. You know, I know a couple people who got into X-Men via Krakoa. They're primarily queer people, and I can usually point to them and say, like, DC was not doing something that is comparable that might pull you in 2019. But I will say their 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 Pride issues are better. So it's kind of all over the place. But the point being, like, it's when we get to this point where it's like I'm kind of spurred on by it being a semi-professional necessity to read this stuff, I'm always pleasantly surprised. And this was a really good example of like, kind of thought this character was nonsense because I have seen some, like, you know, there's been some publicity stuff that isn't great. I did sort of think he was a little more clearly associated with John from Superman and Lois. I was Googling the timeline primarily. I didn't realize that John was already such an established character for years before Superman and Lois even came out. So they're really pulling inspiration from the comics, not vice versa. I sort of thought this was a situation where the show was doing well, so they were like, oh, pull a teen Superman into the mix in the comics. Just like, let's see what that does. It's really the reverse. I was really compelled by this book, by the queer family and friendships of this book. I mean, let's give it up. Sina Grace, phenomenal queer.
I just want to say that if you are talking about like being in a small group of queer creators and being like, no, I have a comic and it's called Kira and it's really cool. Sina Grace was just like, that is awesome. You are as cool as any Marvel writer. You stand up and feel strong. And I was just like, thank you. And then the Comic-Con promoters were like, guys, come on, the room is closed, get out. And Sina Grace was just like, no, this is the creator of Kid Riot. Do you know who you're talking to? And so, like, if you're talking about people who are incredible people, Sina Grace is a literal incredible person. I need to put out there that Sina Grace, Joe Glass, those the two award-winning humans that basically were like, you're like, you're the same as any gay comic creator ever, right? You're equally cool. You are worth it. And so I just want to say, when you say Cena Grace, you are literally saying a person who practices what he puts into print.
Well, and that, it really does go back to the point that I was making earlier, which is like, that's a contemporary of yours. That's, know, like, if you're going to be critiquing comics, there's a good example of somebody like, we're literally critiquing his work right now, and is also somebody that, like, professionally, you are not drastically disparate where he's an Olympian and you're just, playing bocce in your backyard.
Well, none of us are, disparate.
No, I mean, like, so some of us are. Some of us are fully, and I mean, some of us are literally just consumers of, and drag is a great example. I'm fully just a consumer of drag. I'm not doing drag. I am not. I mean,
my drag mask is right behind me.
You are a different story there. But like, I'm a consumer. That's a different thing, and I'm not here to be like, oh God, you're all fucking this up. I would never. This is a great example of like, I'm never somebody who's like, I could kill it. I could do that. And I mean, the point being, Cena Grace is amazing. Also, so is Nicole Maines.
Where is Nicole Maines from?
Well, it's funny you ask. It's right there in the name. She's not a Dixie chick. The
chicks, as they are known.
Oh, right, because we can't say Dixie. Tori Amos.
Only Tori Amos. Eisner Award-winning Tori Amos. Comic book creator Tori Amos. Are we bringing this all full circle?
Yeah, always. It's circles on top of circles for this group. I've fully settled that Dreamer is my favorite DC character. Nicole Maines is my favorite. What?
What do you mean Dreamer is your favorite?
Yeah, I love her. I think she's so great. For one thing, I love the power set. Two, I feel like I got very fucked over with Somnus in Marvel.
Oh, no, Somnus sucks, but like...
I think Somnus is cool. I feel like I got fucked over with the existence of... Like, I mean, they created this character and then they ditched him.
I mean, straight up, you are very lucky that you are, like, the handsomest man on YouTube, because, like, otherwise, I would be throwing a fit. I would be, like, sweeping things off of this.
You're forgetting we've had this argument already.
What do you mean, I'm being silly, but, like...
No, I know.
Would you do me a favor and just explain a little bit who Dreamer is? You know, when you talk about Nicole Maines, you are literally talking about a person who represents... carrying on, like, we talk about Miles Morales as carrying the banner for all minority people at Marvel. Nicole Maines is a real person, and she is carrying the banner for all minority people at DC as a human.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's a very different thing for Kamala Khan and Iman Vellani, but a similar relationship, and Iman Vellani coming to the fore for Ms. Marvel really made me fall in love with the character in a new way, because that is exactly the thing that's not happening on Dazzler. This young woman came in, was cast as the character, is exactly correct. They created this show that is the life of a girl of Middle Eastern descent living in the greatest place on earth, New Jersey. And we're seeing her family in a whole life that, like, that's not probably your life. That's not my life. I love that show because I love seeing this is the...
I live 20 minutes from Woodbridge.
No, I know.
Literally my life.
But you are not part of a Pakistani family.
No, I
know exactly what you mean, and it is your life. But like, I love seeing a show where it's like, this is nothing like my family. I want to see what their life is like. It goes all the way back to like why a lot of people loved Family Matters when we were kids. We were not the children of a black family. Like, we did not live next to Urkel.
And I think to kind of shine a point on your perspective, one of the
Yeah.
things that I loved about I Love Lucy is that I had a white mama and a real Cuban daddy.
Yeah.
And that is why I Love Lucy literally felt like my life. And so,
Yeah.
of course, I love they're playing our song, which has Lucy Arnaz. Of course. And by that same token, though, when I watched something like Perfect Strangers, where perhaps I maybe felt like Balki was kind of mocking Greek culture as a kid, I was like, oh, no, he's Greek. Yeah, goats. Ah, ha, ha, ha. But as an adult, I was kind of like, oh,
And I think to be like Balkan.
Yeah, but it's very kind of like, oh, he's anyone from Europe who is not British. And I felt very much like one of the things that Ms. Marvel sought to do as a TV show was create a very specific identity.
No, by the way, Balki is fully Greek. I'm wrong.
I appreciate that.
I mean, it's fictional Greek. He's not from but like the closest place is Greece.
Yeah, just as a guy who is really stepping into his Greek bear era.
Yeah,
I am. Definitely...
that's fair to have some concerns there.
Yeah, and I think that what I would feel like is if there was a Greek Ms. Marvel.
Yeah.
I don't think I would feel that way. And I just want to say that something that I think about is, TK, if you exist between two comic book characters in the entire world, and you're going to disagree with me, you're going to laugh on air, and that's fine, but you exist between John Kent and Hulkling. There are no two characters that better represent the two halves of who you are as a queer man. And I think that that's part of what we're asking for as fans and creators. We're asking for the opportunity to engage with these characters on multiple levels. When we talk about Dazzler, we're talking about a straight white man writing a sometimes queer female character. When we're talking about the quality of all of the ghost writers, we're talking about an incredible enormity, and only Johnny Blaze got represented in one issue. The writer who wrote that issue does not share that much in common with Johnny Blaze. When we come over to DC, we're talking about the opportunity to see a queer man represent queer Superman, and we're seeing a very straight white man represent the two straight white aspects of the DC universe in Superman and Batman. I myself am really grateful for the ways that DC and Marvel are taking huge steps forward, but I can't help but feel like, as somebody who is a fan of the two major universes that kind of make up the big three, you know, when I joke that you are, it's not really a joke, but when I playfully say that you are a balance of John and Hulkling, it's because neither side is really taking the opportunity to examine what really is a queer man in the modern world. And it would take the balance of the two to give us that, I don't want to say realistic vision, because, you know, we're both amazing. Neither one of us is realistic. But, you know, the bigger picture here is that we have spent an hour and 40 minutes talking about 4 books and the general state of Marvel and DC. And at the end of the day, what we're still talking about is wanting to see ourselves on these pages, in these words. And that's really exciting.
And I will say, like, actually what I've been talking about is the opposite of that as a way of...
Never mind. I'm wrong. Good night.
No, but it's sort of as a way of wanting that. Like you pointed out specifically, like seeing I Love Lucy and seeing that reflection of yourself is really special. And you pointed to something that's sort of like foundational in American TV context. And like I have a lot of those as well, where I feel very privileged to be, you know, a young, well-to-do white cis man, such that like I saw a lot of examples. I mean, unfortunately, I don't see a lot of like great Jewish examples.
I was about to say, what does it mean to be a Jewish gay man in this world where you are truly like, you are asked to be like an entertainment comedy piece as a Jewish man.
I'm rewatching West Wing, and like Toby does not like I like watching Toby. Like Toby does mean something to me as a Jewish person. It's a little bit overwrought. Sorkin is not Jewish, and I don't really, you know, it's not perfect, but Toby matters contextually as a Jewish person.
Okay, the character I identify the most with is Ainsley, so you and I need to
Oh, I
have
mean,
a really long
you know,
conversation.
same. That's why we're doing this. Just you got to represent, Mama. I do actually. Every
you're
time
not
I do.
Josh at all. Okay, sure.
No, you are literally Josh. I am the
Get outta
Donna
here.
to your Josh. He is the.
Okay.
Well, I better say you are the Donna to my Josh, and I am the
Yeah.
Abby to your Bartlett.
Well, no, we've gone over this. You're Bartlett. I'm Leo. He's Abby.
But
Don't
when
handle
you're
me.
Josh, I'm Donna.
I feel like I'm Josh. You're Sam.
Oh no, I'm always Sam. I come
Well-
back in season 7, and it's secretly been my show, even the seasons I wasn't on.
I'm so ready for them to do Seaborn, the West Wing sequel show where he's president.
Can we just agree that if any single human being was literally Leo in their entire life, it's Tori Sheehan?
There is a real degree of that, yeah.
I mean,
including
literally.
deserving a romance with Kristen.
Listen, if
Chenoweth.
I could be a sexy woman, I would marry Tori. But until that incredible lesbian day comes along.
Back to it. So the flip side of things is I like to see the things that I don't represent me at all, that I have no experience with. That was Iman Vellani, and that was Ms. Marvel. This young person's home life that is just not like mine. That her family is not like mine, and I loved watching that show for that reason. And I loved that this young girl got to embody this character and then pull that all the way over into being a writer and creator herself. And has really left a mark on Miss Marvel. I mean, I think the biggest mark since G. Willow Wilson. And again, so important because she is a young Muslim girl, and a young Muslim girl should be writing a young Muslim girl.
Well, and that really brings it back to what we were saying earlier about Dazzler. I certainly don't think that Jason Lowe doesn't have the ability to write an incredible woman, but
No, and did in this issue.
Yes.
I just
wrote 3 incredible women in
Yeah.
this issue.
for Shark Girl, Domino, Dazzler.
No.
Oh no.
He wrote 3 incredible women and 1 character that checked a female box. So I just want to be
All right.
clear.
Okay.
The gotta be for a reason.
Okur, I'm not a trans girl. So I love getting to have a viewpoint into that experience. And while it's not really a thing in Legends of Tomorrow or the places where Nicole Maines appears as Nia Nal, she did grow that character into a spot writing that character at DC and is now the definitive writer of this character. Of this trans woman who is of such exceptional power that she is one of the primary change agents that Waller is using in Absolute Power, while also being, I didn't really realize this, the best friend of John and Jay. No, not Jay's the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I loved reading this issue. I think, this is a great crossover event for anybody who is new to DC because everything feels
Absolutely.
everything feels really relevant and also really ready to teach you what you need to know about the DC universe to get into it a little more. So, I really didn't know a lot about John Kent. I really didn't know a lot about Jay. I had no idea that they had a relationship with Dreamer, but this book taught me everything I really needed to know. And the fact that, we did get sort of a couple of oblique references to the fact that Dreamer is responsible for the death of Jay's mother. I feel like some of this stuff is going to get retconned.
Or it's going to be massaged. There are 2 choices.
She's not dead. Dreamer's not dead, so we're definitely massaging is happening, definitely. But anyway, this is a character. Dreamer is a character that has been my kitty pride getting into DC this year, so that's why she's my favorite character. Nico, I'm sorry that's took over 15 minutes to get to. The reason why this is my favorite character at DC is because she has been my kitty pride. She has been my viewpoint character. I want to support queer excellence. I want to support LGBTQ people and the community, and I want that to be my inroad. And I usually don't need it to be another queer man, because again, I'm a queer man. I've got that perspective. Don't get me wrong. When Asina Grace is writing Super Sons, I'm stoked about it. But if I can be also tied to a Nicole Maines who's taking me through, that means I know I'm with family, but I also am not just reveling in my own perspective. And that's what this character has brought to me for DC. I also just like her look. I like her powers. Yeah,
I mean, I would love that she has canon. Like, one of the hardest things is that when, I compared you earlier to somebody who has characteristics in common with Hulkling. Hulkling doesn't have a whole lot of character. He is bold. He is noble. He is a prince. But Dreamer has faults. She has depth. She has complications. And when I think about what I hope for the future of the Marvel and DC universes, it's not just the simplistic view of hero and villain. Think about how we talked about how Joker has so many levels that he could become something so much greater than any villain at Marvel. And yet when we're talking about the franchises, X-Men rules supreme in, and as far as this wasn't really meant to be an X-Men episode, and we talked for 40 minutes about the X-Men. So,
what we didn't do, though, I thought we would take the news segment and I would get some time to shit on Tom Brevoort talking about what didn't work about the Runaways, which I have a specific computer that I use for our show that I don't use the rest of the time. It's got my whole webcasting setup, and the tabs that I leave open for the show stay left. I walk away from this computer, I don't touch it again. So I have this article that you sent me about Brevoort talking about the Runaways. We're out of time, but this is staying up here and we'll talk about it soon.
No, next week. Let's talk about it, because I, at 17 years old, decided to change my name to Nico because my sister had always called me Nico. And finally, there was a fictional Nico as cool as me. And I said, you know what? If she can be brave, so can I. And, You did not say if she can be goth, so can you, though, which is unfortunate. No, because I was goth at 14, 15, and 16. And I stopped buying eyeliner at 17 because
you should be goth now.
Do you know why I shouldn't be goth now? Because my eyebrows are so heavy and just frankly, I am too sexy to be goth. It is, if you are a dom and a goth, you are sort of like, but if you are like warm, sunshiny, and adorable and a dom, it's like, I'm going to fuck you. Hey, you want a hug? So it's the balance.
Good Lord.
But otherwise, if you are looking to know more about our show, Kevo, you have done such an incredible job producing this show, whether it is over on the podcast format, on the YouTube format, or our incredible deep back catalog of HTML episodes over at cageclub.me/HTML. Kevo, you have done such an amazing job following us and keeping up with this unbelievable conversation when I feel like only 2/3 of it really applied to you. But if 1/3 of it applied to you the most, who would you say you love the most from Roswell, New Mexico, and where can everybody find you?
I most love from Roswell, New Mexico that they did Max Alex. That's not even too much of a spoiler because it's right out the gate.
Right out. Yep.
Such a random pairing to queer.
Yep.
But I love it. See, I had a different thing prepared. I was going to say, speaking of HTML and our MCU coverage,
Go for it.
I would love soon for us to do a deep dive into everything post Endgame soon. I was just, I got lost in a wiki spiral doing some reading when I saw that WandaVision director Matt Shakman had experience directing Mad Men. It's literally only one episode. Teak, did you watch Mad Men or no?
I've watched Mad Men.
The episode where Don has a fever dream where he murders Mad Chinnamek.
Yes, yeah.
That was directed by Matt Shakman, which means that he
Yeah.
directed Teyana Parris in that one because she was in that one. She has a story with Peggy.
Same fever dream.
So I was like, he worked with Teyana Parris before she was on WandaVision. That's really cool. And so that is the sort of stuff that we always love to talk about over on our deep dives on HTML, talking about the MCU. And I was just thinking about just everything about the way it came out and the history that I feel like is already getting lost of why everything happened the way it did due to the pandemic. So I would love if we could start covering that. Plus, plenty of other stuff that we are covering, obviously, over on all of our channels and things. So follow all of our links and check us out on the social medias.
Well, where can we find you if we want to follow you?
You can find me over on the socials at KevoReally. That's KevoReally. And there's the banner right there. Yes.
Well, speaking of banner people, TK, we could not have done this episode without your 50% of the perspective. I am so grateful to you for coming to DC a little bit later and coming to Marvel a little bit sooner. I would not have the exact same ideas of what it means to be a superhero if it weren't for you helping me to see that heroism isn't simply one thing, but it is rather a bigger picture of pragmatism and dreaming. And if everybody wants to follow you, where can they follow you? And who would you love to see most pop from the Marvel Universe into the DC verse to give them the shock of TK adrenaline?
Well, I just want to say, like Lord before me, I am the pure heroine. Oh,
I thought you would never be royal. Got it.
No, I will be. No, that's the plan. I got
Trust me.
designs.
He's real royal.
Yeah, I'm getting there. You can find me at TK Elemental on all your socials. All right, Marvel character who goes over to DC. Sammy Fishboy?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, let's do it.
If you want to follow me, Nico Action, NICOACTION. If you want to follow my music, Nico Action Music, NICOACTIONMUSIC. If you want to check us out on podcast format, it's HTML and X is for podcast. You can follow both of them at cageclub.me. If you want to check us out on all of our social media, that's X is for show. You can follow that over on X, YouTube, and more, as well as Instagram. I do not want to leave out our amazing Instagram followers, but beyond that, if you guys want to do something for us, you can, number one, like, subscribe, and comment. We love when we hear from you. But if you guys want to do something for us that's for you, number one, stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Number two, be brave, because who you are is so important to us. But number three, evolve daily, because who you are today, that's amazing. Who you were yesterday, we can't even believe it. But who you are tomorrow, that's the dream. And until then, we cannot wait to be here for you multiple times a week, bringing it to you at X's for Show. So stay safe, and we'll see ya.